Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, President Obama unveils the most sweeping proposals for curbing gun violence in 2 decades. South Bay Power Plant in Chula Vista will soon be a memory. The first turbine was built in the 1960s.
I'm Peggy Pico. Also ahead, hundreds of people are sick and 6 people have died in San Diego from the flu this year. How long our flu season will last, and should you still get vaccinated? Then, in the first State of the City address, Mayor Bob Filner compares San Diego to a sick patient.
Tonight, the state of our city can be compared, I think, to a patient who has faced a life-threatening disease, who has survived painful treatments and a lengthy recovery.
I'll talk with Mayor Bob Filner tonight about the city's prognosis and how he plans to speed up its recovery.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Erwin Jacobs and by
Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us. President Obama is calling for a series of sweeping laws and restrictions to overhaul the nation's gun laws. Some of the steps could impact weapons trafficking across the border into Mexico. The president says he will ask Congress to create a federal arms trafficking law, reinstate the assault weapons ban, universal background checks, and limit gun magazines to 10 rounds. Those would also have an impact on cross-border trafficking. 900 people have died in the U.S. because of gun violence since the Sandy Hook massacre in December.
If there's even one life that can be saved, then we've got an obligation to try. And I will sign a directive giving law enforcement, schools, mental health professionals, and the public health community some of the tools they need to help reduce gun violence.
The National Rifle Association released a statement following the president's announcement in response to the gun control proposals. It says in part, attacking firearms and ignoring children is not a solution to the crisis we face as a nation. Only honest, law-abiding gun owners will be affected, and our children will remain vulnerable to the inevitability of more tragedy. The operator of the San Onofre nuclear power plant in the North County wants most of its testimony in a state investigation kept secret into what went wrong when the plant shut down last January. KPBS reporter Amitha Sharma has been following this story and joins us from the News Center. Amitha, San Diego Gas and Electric is a minority stakeholder in the plant with the lion's share owned by Southern California Edison. On what grounds are they asking this information be kept from the public?
Well, Dwayne, as you know, the PUC has started an investigation into why the faulty steam generators at San Onofre malfunctioned. That inquiry is likely to ask for data and analyses that Edison and SDG&E relied upon in their decision to purchase the generators. So what Edison and SDG&E are saying is, look, some of that information they're going to be asking us to turn over may contain confidential and proprietary information. For example, Edison says if it had to make public an analysis of the steam generator design, that would violate a confidentiality agreement the company has with Mitsubishi, which made the steam generators.
And what does that have to do with the public?
Well, if the California Public Utilities Commission decides to grant Edison and SDG&E the protective order, that means that anyone who has not signed a non-disclosure agreement would not be able to view the information. That includes us in the press. Now, there are other entities who are parties in the PUC's inquiry. One of them, the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility, is challenging the legality of keeping the company's testimony secret.
KPBS reporter Amitha Sharma. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission heard a petition today from groups who claim Southern California Edison failed to get proper approval before replacing San Onofre's steam generators. It was the first time the NRC officially took testimony from groups who say the power company skirted regulations when it redesigned the plant's steam generators. The group Friends of the Earth say a lot of evidence is being withheld. The NRC says it has no authority to make the documents public, but it will consider the petition within a few weeks. 6 weeks into his term as San Diego mayor, Bob Filner delivered his first State of the City address last night. Peggy Pico talks with the mayor about his plans for San Diego.
San Diego Mayor Bob Filner, welcome back to Evening
Thank
Edition.
you.
It's good to have you here. Last night, you laid out some very ambitious plans that included environmental-friendly urban forestry, solar for government buildings downtown, I think a light rail to the airport, just a myriad of things. One in particular, the new Department for Neighborhoods, for improving neighborhoods. First of all, a lot of plans. How do you plan to pay for those plans?
Well, it's really important, first of all, for a leader of a city, a mayor, to lay out a vision. So when people know where we want to go, there's an excitement about it, there's a sense of progress. I think that's the hardest point, that people feel good about the direction we're going. And then how we do it becomes not trivial, but compared to laying out the vision. And
are taxes involved in that?
I have no plans to ask for any taxes. We're a $3 billion operation. I think we have enough money. It's a question of, one, changing priorities. I want to move money, for example, where $200 million has gone downtown. I want to move that into the neighborhoods for neighborhood infrastructure. We can do that. A lot of money goes for advertising of private hotels across the country. Let's move that into public safety, for example. When I talk about...
But just I want to touch a little more on that. Redevelopment money is gone. So where would that, you have some plans for where that money could come from?
But see, that redevelopment money was based on the fact that property taxes went up downtown, and that money stayed downtown. Now we're going to get back a lot of that tax money into the general fund. So we're going to shift it from where it was downtown to the whole city and neighborhoods within the city. When I talk about sort of grandiose things like we're going to solar power all our public buildings within 5 years, I have talked over a long period of time with many solar companies who will upfront the capital costs for such a program, and they get paid off the savings of our energy bill. So it's not going to cost us any money to put it in. We pay for it from the savings. So we can do this. It doesn't, and there's going to be public-private partnerships. There's ways to deal with this. The money is obviously important, but not as important as the conceptual vision about how we're going to move forward.
And moving forward with conceptual vision, you opened, or you will open, I think in just a few weeks, an office in Tijuana. First time. What is your focus there? Why do you want to do that?
Well, that's going to happen on February 1st. And you know, the city of Tijuana has a municipal office here in San Diego, but we've never had an office in Tijuana. I just think mutual respect and mutual interest. Look, we are tied together. We are the two biggest cities on the border. In fact, we're the biggest metropolitan area, binational metropolitan area in the world. We have a lot to talk about every day, whether it's trade, whether it's relationships, whether it's what happens at the border. So I want to have a very staff people there who can deal with these issues, you know, as they come up. And by the way, we have, you said, well, how much is this going to cost? People are going to say, the city of Tijuana is giving us space in a downtown, I'm sorry, the Economic Development Corporation, as it were, of Tijuana is giving us space in their building right in the center of Tijuana, very accessible and free. So we're going to be able to deal with Tijuana in a much more rapid way, in a much more widespread way, and build up not only our business, but our exchanges of students and art and commerce.
Let me touch briefly on the comparison of the city's financial health to a very ill patient that's recovering. You projected up to a $40 million deficit. What is that deficit based on? What is that projection based on?
You know, when the mayor, previous mayor, who did an incredible job putting us on a sound financial footing, he left thinking there was going to be a surplus, but there are landmines, I call them, down the way that might explode any minute and can project us into a $40 million or more deficit. For example, Prop B, which is the new pension system that was voted on the voters, is going to cost us just $37 million to set up a new system. That was not fully put into the budget. This redevelopment that you mentioned, the state is ruling that certain funds we're going to have to pay that were paid out of the redevelopment. For example, we pay $15 million or so every year for Petco Stadium. That's going to become now part of the city budget.
that we have to plan for. We only have about 30 seconds left, so I do want to get this. You have a plan to work with the union and city workers over 5 years to help sort of offset this deficit. Can you briefly explain what that is?
Well, one, I want to have a 5-year contract. That would save a lot of money in and of itself. You don't have to negotiate every year. It gives us a chance to reward employees that have not have any pay raise for the last 5 or 6 years. And it saves money off of our pension debt just because you have the certainty of a contract and not just a projection. So what this is, I want to follow through on Proposition B and my promise not to raise pensionable pay over a 5-year period. Let's get that done. Let's see where we can help employees in other ways, like in healthcare costs, and show that we respect our public employees, but we have to respect the taxpayers' sense of what's appropriate for our city to achieve.
Well, all right, so much more to talk about, but we are out of time. San Diego Mayor Bob Filner, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Japan Airline service between San Diego and Tokyo may be in trouble tonight. The airline grounded its new fleet of Boeing 787s today after an electrical fire sent smoke into the cabin of another airline using the same planes. A similar incident happened last week in Boston. Boeing's new Dreamliner also has had problems with fuel leaks. Flights between Lindbergh Field and Tokyo are canceled through Friday. This comes less than 2 months after the service was launched in San Diego. A study from the California Department of Motor Vehicles finds unlicensed drivers are nearly 3 times more likely to cause a fatal crash than drivers with valid licenses. It looked at fatal crashes in California over a 23-year period and found unlicensed drivers more likely to be at fault in fatal crashes. In California, a law signed last year now allows licenses for undocumented youth who get work permits as part of a deferred federal deportation policy. San Diego attorneys have filed a civil lawsuit against the Boy Scouts of America. It claims a 14-year-old boy was sexually abused over a 2-year period by a camp counselor who was not properly supervised. The suit claims it happened almost 15 years ago at a summer camp in the North County and other locations. The alleged victim is now 29, and the man accused of molesting him was arrested in 2001 for sex crimes against children. The plaintiff's lawyer says he hopes the case will force the Scouts to disclose a privately held list of other child abusers.
A molestation isn't just a physical act, it's emotional murder. And so, in our country, we now know that there were hundreds and hundreds of Boy Scout leaders from 1965 to 1991 that did this, if not thousands. But they haven't released the documents after 1991. So there very well may be predators still in San Diego, still working with children who we don't know about.
KPBS contacted the Boy Scouts, but they didn't return our calls regarding this lawsuit. Today, a California judge has ordered the organization to release 2 decades of internal files detailing sexual abuse allegations. San Diego is working on a 5-year plan to improve the department response times throughout the city. The plan comes from a report the city commissioned in 2010. Among the 10 actions San Diego was supposed to take in the first year, 4 have been completed, including restoring browned-out fire engines. A new dispatching process for medical emergencies has also been adopted, which has reduced response times by 42 seconds. The report says San Diego could use up to 19 additional fire stations to provide a 5-minute response time to most of the city. An iconic San Diego fixture is about to become a memory. The South Bay power plant in Chula Vista has turned fossil fuel into electricity since the first turbine was built in the 1960s. KPBS business and environment reporter Eric Anderson says the towering metal structure is coming down soon.
A hulking metal frame holds together a machine built to make power. The structure didn't hide those 4 huge turbines that turn steam into electricity. The energy company Dynegy is overseeing the demolition. The firm's Katie Sullivan points at boiler tubes that are now part of a tangled metal mess on the ground.
But there are hundreds of tubes like this that run through the boiler that carry hot water and steam, and that's all part of the power generation process. And these tubes will come out once the structure is felled, and will be salvaged.
For months, crews have ripped out the bottom floors of the plant. Sullivan says the structure has been gradually gutted. Concrete and metal piles are sifted and separated, and then carted away.
This is a large job. We've removed 7,000 tons of steel so far from the site. By the time this project is done, we could have upwards of 24,000 tons of steel that are recycled and salvaged. Considerable amount of concrete and other materials have been salvaged and repurposed. Very little waste, actually, from a demolition of this size.
Workers on the ground and in excavators and skid steers do the heavy lifting. The major support beams are being readied for the explosive charges that will go off in a series of blasts that could go on for up to 2 minutes on demolition day.
It'll sound a little bit like rolling thunder, and these first 3 facilities will fall to the north. This last facility on the end here will fall to the east, all of them falling away from the water and other natural habitat.
That'll happen in a matter of weeks, but demolition day can't come soon enough for Laura Hunter. The Environmental Health Coalition activist struggled for years to shut down what she considers an ecological disaster.
It comes from a day when we didn't know any better, and we thought we had to put power plants on the coast using the ocean to cool them. We're not at that day anymore, and so really it was just a matter of time.
The facility spewed air pollution into nearby neighborhoods and created ecological havoc by using the shallow bay water to cool the giant turbines. The chlorinated and superheated water was pumped back into the bay.
Basically, the entire South Bay is a fish nursery. So juvenile fish, if we want to have big fish, we got to have baby fish. They grow up here. I mean, the shallow waters are really very important. And that's why this plant was located in the most damaging location it could possibly have been, right in the middle of a fish nursery area, shallow water, densely populated.
In the shadow of the facility, delicate marshland nurtures all manner of fish, birds, and bugs.
The plants are very productive. The space that it provides is very productive. You look around, you see the birds using it. And, you know, we haven't done a very good job featuring areas like this because, you know, when you look here, you don't see the beautiful salt marsh. You see, you know, the eyesore.
The Port of San Diego's Tanya Castaneda says the power plant's 115-acre footprint will change dramatically.
We're really looking forward to the removal of the power plant. That's going to open up that space, and it's just part of this grand vision for the 500-plus acres of the Chula Vista Bayfront to make it a more welcoming, accessible place.
And in its place, the Port of San Diego and the city of Chula Vista are hoping to develop parkland, areas that are much more user-friendly than they have been.
When we remove it, that's going to immediately affect this whole land area. It's going to make it more desirable. It's going to help us bring in the developers and the financiers to build the world-class bayfront that we deserve.
Castaneda says that potential development along Chula Vista's bayfront could replace the revenue that the port earned from the South Bay power plant when it was churning out electricity. She says bayfront development here has been held back because not many developers want to build a world-class hotel with a view of a hulking gas-fired power plant. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The South Bay plant stopped producing electricity at the end of 2010 after a state-of-the-art power plant went online in Otay Mesa. A Tijuana nonprofit is opening the city's first composting center. It's part of an effort to reduce waste that affects both sides of the border. The group Tijuana Calidad de Vida means quality of life. It's opening the center with help from a $93,000 grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Composting takes organic material like plant and animal waste and turns it into fertilizer. The center expects to produce 150 tons of compost in its first year. Federal health officials say the nation may be nearing the peak of a devastating flu season, but as Peggy Pico explains, San Diego's flu season won't peak for at least another month.
San Diego health officials say the flu has killed 6 people in the county this flu season, and they say the number of people with influenza in the county has doubled since last week to total 670 reported cases. Director of Emergency Medicine at UCSD, Dr. Christian Tomaszewski, joins me to talk about what's likely to happen next as far as when the flu will peak and what people here can do about it as far as protecting themselves. Thank you so much for joining me.
Sure.
San Diego has what is considered a late flu season. When is our flu season typically, and has it peaked yet?
Usually the peak of the season is in February, but it may come in January this year, a little earlier. And the thing that helped it is the cold, dry weather. I mean, that's what the flu needs to spread.
And how does it spread that way? Because I think there's a misconception that cold weather causes the flu.
No, and drafts don't do it. Sleeping under the air conditioning doesn't do it. It's the cold, dry air allows it to get aerosolized and survive longer.
All right. And people are indoors more, I understand, so they're in closer contact with people who...
Perfect combination for a virus that wants to spread, absolutely.
Of course, we've heard across the country that there's been many deaths, and this seems to be a particularly bad flu season back east. And is the flu strain this year particularly worse than other years?
It's not the worst, but it is a bad one, and especially if you have high risk factors to get complications from the flu.
Such as who would be most at risk?
The elderly, people over 65, infants, and pregnant women, and anyone with a coexisting illness, you know, lung disease, heart disease, kidney disease, that kind of thing.
And these people, can they get vaccinated, and who should be vaccinated?
They can absolutely get vaccinated. I think everyone should get vaccinated because not only do we need to take care of ourselves, we need to keep this virus from spreading. And
let's talk about that spread. So the couple things that everyone knows about: proper hand washing, right? And then maybe staying home. What can you recommend as far as if you think you're coming down with the flu, what should you do?
Stay home. Do us a favor. Don't spread it. And if you need to go out or see other people, try to keep your cough to yourself. Cough into your arm or sleeve, and make sure you try not to touch your face, and good hand cleansing.
Yeah, it's amazing how much hand washing can actually statistically improve lessen the spread of the disease. I would like you to dispel some misconceptions about getting the flu shot, getting a flu vaccine. Tell us what the truth of it is. Can you get the flu from a flu shot?
If you're going to give 100 million flu shots, like the number of people have gotten the flu shot this year, somebody is going to get sick at the same time they get the flu shot. And because of magical thinking, they're going to think that the flu shot caused it, when in fact it's the opposite. The flu shot rarely, if ever, causes any illness. You might have a mild allergic type response, but you're not going to get the flu from the flu shot, and you're not going to get sick from it.
Right, and the reason is because it's not a live virus, correct?
Absolutely, right. It's been it's been killed, so right.
There's no way you can get it from that. Is it too late for people in San Diego to get vaccinated? Have we passed the mark where it would do us any good?
The good news is we're just on the shoulder. The fun is about to start in terms of the flu, having a party here. So go get the flu shot. It's not too late.
Okay. How do you know when you should go see your doctor and or, dare I say, go to the ER when you have a flu?
Most of the flu can be handled at home with fluids and maybe something to help with the fever and the muscle aches. But if you have a coexisting illness, you're pregnant, you're older, or you have illnesses of the heart or lungs, then you probably should call your doctor if you think you're coming down with a flu.
So doctor first?
Right, and go to a local clinic if you can't get a hold of your doctor. You really don't want to go to the emergency room unless you're having the warning signs of the flu.
Okay, which would be?
Chest pain, trouble breathing, abdominal pain. You can't keep up with your fluids, you're vomiting so much. So in those cases, then I could see you coming to an emergency department or calling your doctor.
Because it's moved to a severe. I want to touch on this. A few retailers, I understand, are here in San Diego saying they've run out. They don't have the vaccine. Is there a shortage?
I don't control the supply chain for the flu virus, for the vaccine, but I've heard of spotty shortages in areas. The good news is more supplies are coming in. So if you get a chance, I can't guarantee it's going to stick around. If you see a vaccine, go get it.
Go get it right then. All right. Thank you so much for talking with us about this, and you'll be back over at the hospital, and we appreciate your insight.
And we'll see how many cases we get this year.
Okay, we will.
Thanks.
I'm Jeffrey Brown. On the next NewsHour, President Obama rolls out his gun control initiatives, plus retired General Stanley McChrystal on the Afghan war. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
San Diego weather mostly sunny and warmer over the next few days, near 70 at the beaches with nighttime lows in the 40s and 50s. Inland valleys will warm into the 70s through Saturday, dipping into the 40s at night. Chilly in the mountains, mid-50s and breezy tomorrow. Plenty of sunshine in the desert with temperatures in the low 70s through Saturday. Recapping tonight's top stories, after 6 weeks in office, San Diego Mayor Bob Filner delivered his prognosis for the city of San Diego. He compared the city's financial health to that of a patient recovering from a life-threatening illness. Projecting a $40 million deficit, Filner says he can help get the city through the rocky times. He says his relationship with labor unions will allow him to implement financial reforms that will save the city money. And a California judge has ordered the Boy Scouts of America to release 2 decades of internal files detailing sexual abuse allegations. It is the latest in a series of disclosures by the youth organization. A civil lawsuit was filed today in San Diego against the Boy Scouts on behalf of a 29-year-old who claims he was molested as a teenager by a camp counselor. Japan Airline service between San Diego and Tokyo may be in trouble. The airline grounded its new fleet of Boeing 787s today after an electrical fire sent smoke into the cabin of another airline using similar planes. Another incident happened last week in Boston. Now, Boeing's new Dreamliner also has had problems with fuel leaks. Flights between Lindbergh Field and Tokyo are canceled through Friday. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.